Today we're going to look at observability, and we're going to look at this in 3 acts. This is act 1 of 3 right now, where I'm actually just framing the conversation so that you're on board with me on that journey. Act 2 is going to be a runtime demo, showing you what that observability look like, but also what the experience of this new web is going to look like as well. And act 3 is going to be pure pro dev. I'll show you how I created it. But in this act 1, I want to start off by showing you something that I whiteboarded. So this week at work, it's FHL, Fix, Hack, Learn. And I'm doing a little bit of hacking and a little bit of learning, because observability is not a place that I spent a ton of time before. And I wanted to, get versed at it. Because that's something I'm going to be working on as we approach the next, fiscal year, the next semester, which starts next week, actually. July 1 is next week. So the way I'm thinking about this, let me see if I can zoom in here a little bit, and this board is messy. It is deliberately messy because it's just what's inside my head, and I wanted to capture it. So let's start with the end user and realize that I myself am an end user. So whenever I use something that I create, there is an expected outcome that I would like to have, right? I type this in or I voice something and I expect to see this back. And I'll know if it's right or wrong. I expect it to be timely, right? And what do I mean by timely? It could be, I expect a quick response back. It's an easy question. You should be able to just do that. And if it takes a while, then, which is latency, it'll be not timely and I'll be upset. If I give it something that it should be thoughtful about, then I want it not to give me a quick knee-jerk action back. I want it to take some time. And in that aspect, you didn't take enough time. And I want it to be inviting, not cluttered like you see this thing right now, but this was cluttered for a reason. It's just the thoughts in my head and they're all over the place sometimes. But if it's done well, then I should be delighted in the outcome and I should be amazed with the results. Now, you may think as an end user that the measure, the bar should be objective, and to some extent it is, but what I may want on Monday may differ from what I want on Tuesday, even if it's the same thing. So to some extent, a lot of what you see here for the end user is deemed, in my mind, subjective. Now, in my role at work, I'm a product manager. And I own certain features. So when I go about this with the end user in mind, then I need to also think about this and bring in stakeholders around the designer, the admin, the which is the IT pro person, the developer who's building this, because I'm not writing production code anymore. Let's just put it that way. And they also may have what they look for when in their role. So because I'm used to creating tooling around a developer, a pro dev, and I should also pause here, because when I talk about developer, initially I was thinking about this as a pro dev, but the more you think about it, developers, the work, it's changing with Gen AI, right? Because you can vibe code, you can do a ton of different things that would make the average person a developer in that aspect. So developers could be somebody, again, putting on the Microsoft hat, that's creating something in Agent Builder. It could be somebody using Microsoft Copilot Studio. It can be somebody that is using Visual Studio Code, or whatever professional IDE that you want. So developer here is a wide and encompassing term that I'm using. And as a developer, you may want to see the end-to-end trace. You may want to see if there are errors, and you may want a context around that error. You may be concerned about latency. We talked about, is it too quick or is it too slow? And you may also interested in the payload input and the output, and that is, did it give you the expected outcome, right? So as a developer, you're creating these experiences, and you can see how that somewhat aligns to what the end user wants as well. Now I'm going to skip admin for now, jump straight to the designer, because I also work with the designer, and to a less extent the admin, because the admin is once it's deployed and it's inside your tenant. But I also, as a PM, think about the admin as well. But as a designer, if I'm collaborating with the designer and also thinking about it myself, here I'm concerned about the look and feel. Is it aesthetically pleasing? I'm looking about the flow. Is it natural in terms of how it takes you from one part to the other? And taste, and taste. You say, how do you measure taste? And some people say taste when you see it. But it's just got to feel right. And as a designer, you're also concerned about the drop-off points. So they're on that flow, and then all of a sudden, for whatever reason, boom, it falls off a cliff. Why? Did something go wrong? Where did it go wrong? And you provide tools for that. You can provide thumbs up and thumbs down in order to, for the user along their journey to indicate whether, it is something that they wanted or something that they did not want. And as a PM, a product owner, these are, things that I think about as well. All of that, all of those personas. Now, when you think about looking at these things, the word that's thrown around is, observability. And when you think about observability, at least for me, I think about standards. One of the things in working in a large organization that creates their own product and their own services is that they may have different ways that they surface their own observability. As we talked about before, in Agent Builder, you may have tooling that will show you success, failure, audit trail. In Copilot Studio, it may be a different thing. If you're building something yourself, it may yet be a different thing. And there should be a way to, not just as the end user, because in that aspect you may be the builder and also the end user, and you may be sharing things out, and those are your other end users. But you may also be thinking about it again in terms of the admin, because when you deploy it, it's now on a server in a tenant, and that admin is one of your users as well, or a different persona, I should say. And the person who ideated this all up, the PM and the designer is also there as well too. So I want to think about it a little bit larger, and I want to think about a standard that you can output it, that everyone can benefit from this. And for me, that's OpenTelemetry. And a lot of these vendors that are out there already, like OpenAI, in terms of their playground, if you look at it closely, you'll see that you'll see the word span ID or trace and stuff like that in there. I believe in the back end that's what they're doing. If you look at things like Crew AI and other things, even in tooling like Cursor and Windsurf, a lot of people borrow from the idea of OpenTelemetry because it is a standard. So I want to also adhere to that standard. So when you think about it, at its most basic level, a lot of things really come down to logs, traces and spans, and metrics. So logs see everything, but they basically see everything in a point in time. That's the reason why logs can be tremendously long, and it may take you forever to look through something. It's not really meant for human eyes. It's capturing information. Now, from logs, however, you can chart that user journey, and that's where spans and traces come in. So consider a trace as a series of spans, and consider a span as a wrapped entity. So it's if you're guiding a user through an experience, and that experience has different, I'm trying to not use developer speak, but different methods or different buckets, if you will. You can wrap these buckets in spans, and that the person clicked on this, then they got that, and it went here, and it brought this back, and those spans become traces. And a trace basically now is another layer that is like a double click into a log, because now rather than just in time, you have a series. It basically showing you something across a time span, pun, a time series. So you can see in lines that this happened, and it took this amount of time to get it done. So, and you can also see the payload inside there. Now we should talk about that, because you don't necessarily want to put payloads inside your login, or you want to basically turn it on and turn it off because of, it may have identifiable information inside there. You don't want the log to be bloated as well, but for debug, you may want to do that, especially as a developer. And from spans and traces, you may have metrics now. So if over a period of time, you can actually say, okay, it started here, it ended here. So now you have latency counts. If you're doing a payload, you can see, an audit trail, and you can also see drop-off points as well too. So those are things that you have from an observability standpoint. Now, we talked a little bit about visibility before in terms of like the end user is able to see things in the tools that there are. But beyond the end user, there's also the admin, the designer, and the product manager. Now, the product manager is going to want to see everything because that's the person that it was their spark that said that we should do this, and they had reasons why they said either a customer told them that they should do this, or they saw this as a business need. So they want to see everything. The designer may want to see dashboards to see, okay, this happened and then there's a drop off, or the person thumbs up and they thumbs down. And the admin may want to see things inside, at least in terms of Microsoft, it's the Mac, the Microsoft Admin Center. They may have CLI tooling, and they also may have dashboard and reports. And the end user, whether they're using Claude desktop or whether they're using ChatGPT, as we talked about before, if they're using Copilot, BizChat, or a mobile or a web experience, they're going to want to have that as well. Now, when I say dashboards and reports, this could be something as simple as, and in the example that we're going to be doing today, it's going to be with Aspire dashboard, because it allows us to look at, traces, logs, and metrics. Or it could be something like Grafana, it could be something like Jaeger, it could be something like Prometheus, and also Azure Insights and Azure Monitor. So that's basically what we're going to be doing here today. This concludes Act 1 right now. The next thing I'm going to show you is Act 2, which is basically a runtime experience. And just to close off Act 1 and pick up in Act 2, what you're going to see is how using the runtime that I have, I'm going to have an MCP tool server that I created that also is tied to the experience. And you're going to see how 2 queries using Claude desktop is going to result into potentially hundreds of lines in logs, but maybe 3 lines in tracing, and maybe 2 or 3 things inside of metrics. And again, just to close this out, what we're going to, so that there's completeness in all 3 of the acts, we're going to be using a demo that I created that is all around a brewery experience. Everyone knows that I like to do things that are not just demoware, but actually have some meaning. So Jailbreak was the first one. This one's going to be using a brewery that I frequent now here in Columbia, Maryland, called Sapwood. I basically took their menu, and in their menu, which is static, I basically said, okay, let's put this in structured data. Human can still see structured data, but also I want to do a query that is going to be like a narrative query. I want to say something like, I like something that's sweet. I like something that's tart, citrusy, with these notes. So notice I didn't use the word bear in there at all. This experience is going to have only vector searches. So it is going to take what I have, do an inference around it, and basically give me results back with a thumbs up, thumbs down experience. And I want to have observability and all of that. And not only am I going to have that in a website, but it's going to also have an MCP server that you can use either Claude desktop, use Visual Studio Code, or use ChatGPT now because they support MCP, and ask the same questions. As long as you have the MCP server registered, you should get an answer back. So that's what we're going to do next. Closing Act 1. Hi everyone, Fabian here again. This is Act 2 of 3. We just completed Act 1 where we shaped the entire thing around the personas of who will be using an experience, a web experience built on Gen AI, talked about observability. We talked that we're going to be doing a demo that is going to be a runtime demo showing you observability in the context of that user, which is the reason why we had to have a product. And I want to just frame this. I'll have a link to the Act 1, which will give you a long explanation about just how I'm thinking about this and what this journey is going to look like. But in this Act 2, we're going to be using I want to use the word product, but every time I build a solution that I want to do either at work or elsewhere, I try to tie it to something that's not just demoware. In past, I've done something with Jailbreak Brewery. Now it's actually going to be with Sapwood Brewery, which is in Columbia, a little bit up the road. This demo, which is all around observability, but it is also talking around just the new way the web needs to work, which is for giving content that both a human consume and also an agent can consume in this agent to agent and MCP world. So for this MCP demo that I'm going to start off with, we are going to expose this menu as tools so that you can ask questions as a human being. We're moving to a place now where we're not domain experts, and we don't speak in strict language by using the proper terms. We may say, I for one like IPAs. So I may say, you know what, I like things that are tart and citrusy. Well, how does it know what that is, right? But it should give me a list of items because it should infer from that based on the information in that menu that is now structured. Here's what you can get. Now, I'm going to demo this using Claude Desktop as well. There is a website that I created which does both a list search, so you can see things in the traditional way a human likes to consume it, but also a narrative search, which is how an agent would ask it. It'll ask it a question and it comes back with a bunch of stuff and you give it to the person. So let's get stuck in on that so you can actually see what we're going to do. Now, when we did the last Act 1, we talked about the fact that logs give you everything and it's just in time. It is a big bunch of information not really meant for human actors. But with traces and spans, someone carefully curated what that should look like to follow the user journey so you can actually see the time series of how a person clicked through an item, whether they had a good experience, thumbs up, thumbs down, and an admin can also see the metrics. Now, we're starting off here inside Aspire Desktop, one of the visuals that we talked about before, and we can see that there's nothing there. Now, we're going to do this with a simple console application that I created that is an MCP server that we're serving up that ties back in there. So you'll see that this has things about login, about tracing, and so on and so forth. I don't want to go too far into this because I have some code down there before, because there's the MCP runtime. But what we're going to do here is, oh, it's already running. Okay. Let me go ahead and actually stop this. Control C. Should not be running, but it's probably going to now put logs inside there in it. Let's see. Yes, it did. You can see just from stopping it alone how we actually have 9 items in the log there already. No traces, however, because we haven't done any searches, and no metrics. Well, there's going to be metrics because we just stopped it. So we can actually see that it's giving us the count in terms of stuff. But that's neither here nor there for our purposes here today. And I'm not going to start over the server. We'll just know that we're starting off with 9. So let's come here and do a .NET run. I wanted to make sure things were working before we actually did it. So now the server is running again. So now we should actually see inside here 15 items. So it's telling us that the MCP server has started. And now if I go to Claude Desktop, all right, and I open up Claude Desktop, I want to show you that Claude is also now looking at that project here that you saw, and it is in a running state. All right. And inside here under tools, we can see that we have that MCP server and we have 4 tools that are able. And this is important because as an end user, you decide what you want to turn on and turn off. Now, granted, as a developer, I may expose the server and I may light up a bunch of tools, and then you wake up one morning and you had 5, and the next morning you have 10. And that can be of a concern, but you can control that, or you should be able to control that as well. And as you can see, you can do that in Claude. ChatGPT also just rolled out support for MCP, but I've not played with that as yet. So we can see it. So what I'm going to do now, let's again come look over here. Now we have 150 lines inside here. No traces yet, but we will definitely have a count one now as well for, let's go find it. A tool count. It's not that one in it. Okay, one of these inside here is going to give us tool count, and I just can't remember what it is right now, but we will come back to that. Oh, there it is, actually right there. It shows us the amount of counts that's there. So now actually let's go ask a question. I'm going to say, I like drinks that are fruity. What, if I can spell, what do you have? Nothing about beer, just asking a question as I would ask another colleague about that, okay? So now it says, boom, I can help you with Sapwood Cellars. Now it's asking me for permission, and it's looking at one of the flavor note, which is one of the MCP server tools that I basically am. I'm going to do allow once because I wanted to keep asking me these things. But one of the things we talked about from an observability standpoint was, how does the user know it didn't hallucinate? So Right now it's looking for fruity. You can see come back here, and now it's asking me again for flavor note. I'm going to do an allow once again. Citrusy it came up with, even though I said fruity. And now it's coming back with some options. You can see it says America Pale Ale with hops that bring a white wine flavor. It has a hazy IPA, so it brought back 4 items right here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we come over to here now, we actually see some traces now. And if I come back to log right here, which is a little bit more verbose, you can see all of the things it went through. But now we're up to 218 log items, things that, it would take us a while to look at that. But luckily, we created spans and traces around that. So you can see it ask about the flavor note here. It took 5.36 seconds. As an admin, that's important to you because you can see latency. As a developer, that's important to you, and you can see these traces and how long things take, and I can go back to the log and dig into it. But let's move this out a little bit so we can see what happened. We can see we called the flavor note from the MCP call, but that really comes down to this handler right here, which is basically the Azure function that's there. So MCP is calling something else. So let's click into this guy right here, and we can actually see now inside here the invocation. I'm looking to see what service name, the MCP. If I click inside here, this is just a call to the handler deciding what it needs to do. But inside this guy here, now we have find beers that match description fruity. Now that is not the query that I gave it, right? But this is how Claude, this LLM, which is basically the client to the MCP server, is asking that question. And when it does that, we can now see inside, well, that's a sanity check that I always do. We can see here that again, remember we talked about the fact that this is all doing vector search. So it is not asking the question in English. It is asking a question as vectors. So it created an embedding, and if we know 1536, that's basically the embedding model that I'm using in terms of the vector source. And it basically created this query as well and called the federated search. And then it basically gave the response back to the user. Okay, so that's basic, and it came back with a max count of 3, and it gave the result back. If I come back to traces here and click on this again here, let's take a look and see what this did. Again, we're doing this all together. It's the flavor, because remember it did ask the question twice, right? So inside here, same thing. The Azure Functional website, it's calling the function handler again. The federated, this took a little bit longer here. So now it's saying find beers that taste like citrus or tropical fruits. So not citrusy, because that's the second call that it did, and it asked me for the second permission. So this one now, this is probably the one that we want. So inside the generate embedding, click on this again. We can now see our generate embedding. We can again see it's 1536. Inside this search, it comes back with the 6 results, which is what we saw. 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically, if I came inside here, it'll probably show the 6 results. Yep, it's going to have 6 results in here, so it didn't hallucinate. It also tells us latency, and it also gives us the information here as well. And it inside here, response of the user, it basically responded back. So with the items. So this basically shows you, and under metrics here, if I come here and do this guy here, you can see, well, let's last 15 minutes. You can, this is some of the metric that we have in terms of latency that we did inside of our tool call. And inside here somewhere, we can see the tool invocation that happened, and we can see the latency as well. So this is showing you how, as an admin, you can have that visibility inside there. As a product person, you can have a visibility as well. Now let's take this in a different place. So that's MCP. Let's now come over here. We're gonna show you this here. you have basically all of the menus that are there. This is the list menu that someone can see, very human driven. I can click inside here and I can actually see some more information about that. That's all cool and well. But if I wanted to ask a question, here are some of the things that I can do filtering on this item here. And I can do a list search, which is that give me a list of items, or I can do a narrative search. Here, we're actually going to do some thumbs up and thumbs down so you can actually see that type of visibility as well. So I'm going to come and say, what do you have that's barrel aged? Control C, Control V, and I'm going to do a list search. All right, so we can see how quick that comes back. We have 3 items come back. We can see it also gives us a score. So I'm using a ranking here as well. It give me is 0.56 out of 1, 0.49, 0.49. So these are things that they believe are barrel age, and sometimes something inside here is going to say barrel age. And we can come over to here now. In fact, let's do 2 things. Let's go ahead and actually thumbs up this one right here. We can see it says, thank you for that feedback, give you that visual reference. And let's do a thumbs down on this one right here. Notice vintage and also kintsugi. So if I come over to here now and go back, sorry, it's here, and go to Aspire Metrics and go to traces, now we can see that we have that federated search. We have the the feedback handler. This is going to be the thumbs up one. This is going to be the thumbs down one, just because I know how it works. And if I click into here for the federated search, we can now see again how we do, which is basically what the MCP one did as well. What options do you have for barrel age? It has information inside there. Generating the embedding, we see it already, says the 1536, and this is the query that's being done. It returns the 3 items, which we know that we saw 3 here as well. And we also have the send to the user. Now, if we come back over to trace and we go to this handler, this one right here is basically going to be the one that say thumbs up and thumbs down. So we have the handler that ran. We can see the thumbs up. And you see this table storage. That is because if we come over to here, Azure Storage Explorer, I should have had this ready for you, but I did not. This guy. Okay, that guy, and this guy. We notice today is the 28th, and we can see that we have 2 items in the 28th, and what items we have that are barrel age is going to be there. Here's the thumbs up one, and you notice inside here, we have the vote, but we also have the JSON results. So if we wanted to create evals, which is important, now, and here, let's pause on evals for a little bit. When you create a GenAI solution, it's non-deterministic. You may have ideas of how it should work, but it may work differently. And as you change and upgrade your model, that will also change the results. So the end user, who is, remember we talked in the Act 1 about what they care about, and we want to give them the thumbs up and thumbs down. As a PM, I can see that this is what they asked, this is what they got, and they said thumbs up. We don't want this in the log. We want this as a means of making sure that we know that we're creating a good product and that we can tune things, and then we are expanding our evals, or golden sets, if you will, to show that when we make another model choice, we make sure that we train it with this one to say, it can actually say, yep, it's giving us the same thing or better from what we do, and from what we had before in the previous model, and we're not going to have a regression. So as a PM, evals. So once we've done that now, and we can go back to traces again, and we come down here to view, and this one obviously would be the thumbs down one that we did for the other one. All right. Okay. So if we come down to metrics here as well, you'll see that we have some latency one here. This is a lot of stuff. I'm not going to go into this right here, but here's our feedback count already here. We have the thumbs up and the thumbs down. We can filter on that. That just shows you what we just did a while ago. Let's go ahead and do a narrative search. So we're going to come over here now and do the exact same search. Control C. Let's go ahead and just clear this out a little bit. And we will do a Control V, and we will now change this to narrative, and we will do search. Now this is really, you saw how quick that was? This basically is just showing you, and it's quick because I'm using a Redis cache. So that's now, again, thinking as a developer, how do I make this experience better? Let's actually do something, and it's giving us back the same items again, as you can see. And I'm going to do I'm going to do a thumbs up for this one. Let's do something else that we have not done before. Let's do, what do you have sweet on the menu? This will take a little bit longer because this is not in the cache, or it should be in the cache. There it is. So it's taking a little bit longer now. This is not just me playing around because it's fun for me, but we can see it came back here. And I'm going to do a thumbs up on this one so you can see that this worked and it's here. And I'm going to do this exact same query again. Look how fast it came back, right? This cache, and it cleared it because so that you can actually see that it's actually another one. So when I come over to here now under Aspire Metrics and go to traces, I can now see that I have my narrative search. Here's the one that went first at 7 point something seconds. This is the one that's asking about, are there any sweet things on the menu? Because I wanted something without latency, sorry. And I can see it went to the Redis, didn't find anything, came back with the embedding, and in this one, I did this purposefully just because I'm intrigued by it. But if I come here for the preview, you can see it says, absolutely, we have some sweet beer options for you. And it doesn't give us everything. Again, you don't want to bloat the log. Also, you don't want to maintain PII. But I just wanted to prove that it worked. So we can see it only gave me, I think, 150 characters out of it. And we can do a thumbs up and thumbs down. But this concludes Act 2. It shows you visibility in the context of the user in Claude. We can see things in terms of the product manager, the designer, the admin, the developer, all there using OpenTelemetry. So conclude Act 2. Act 3 is going to be how I built this, how I carefully thought about the spans that created the traces, that created the services in order to get this here. Thank you for sticking around.